what I would like to see us do, everybody should have received one of these sheets. And I would encourage you to look at those options now, because what we would like to do is, as you come up to the podium, please identify which of those options you like the most. It's your option to do so. There's no requirement to, but if you're willing to share, that will help us in making our decision as we look forward to dealing with this issue. Also, we will take, in order, individuals who would like to speak by stepping up to the podium and forming a line down the middle. So we will take those individuals in order, and as they speak, if you would, please move off and let the next person speak. Okay, great. So we do have a list of people that have signed up. It's quite a few. That is really good. Again, I would suggest that when I open this up, everyone, those who would like, I will take them in the order in which they are in line at the podium. You're allowed to ask questions directly of board members at this meeting. Unlike our regular board meetings where we have a session for open comment and public discussions, we typically do not respond to direct questions. This is an opportunity for you to ask us direct questions if you would like. We'll do our best to answer them. Maybe some of the board members may or may not want to respond to them, but at least you have the opportunity to ask those questions. I know I will do my best to give you my thoughts and my opinions on things, how I feel about it as a voting board member, but each individual will have their own comments if they so choose. If questions are asked directly to a board member and they are not obligated to speak, if they decide not to, then perhaps we have a subject matter expert in the back, Joe Connolly, who may be able to answer some questions for us. And of course, Dr. Finch, our superintendent, is also here if he can fill in any of the blanks if they're needed. I want to mention the purpose of this forum, what it's for, and I thought it'd be important to state what this forum is and what it is not, okay? The first thing, this meeting is to hear your input on what to do with remaining funds. We're here to listen first and foremost. This is a chance for you to have direct conversations with individual members on the board if you would like to ask direct questions of us. Again, as I mentioned, for those who can respond or would like to, we'll do our best. This is also a learning opportunity for the community to better understand that we care about what you think. In the past, there's been comments made that we don't communicate enough, so this is a great opportunity for us to open the doors of communication even further and that you speak directly to us. What this is not, and this is important for everyone to know, okay, this is not a hearing or referendum on what will happen with the remaining funds. We are here to hear your comments. That's a decision that will be made later. It won't be done at either of these two forums, but your input is important if you would like to share it. This is not a final decision point either. The board will not vote during these forums. We will wait until after we have heard from you and hear your comments. Another point is this is not a discussion on unrelated issues. Unlike our board meetings where there's an opportunity for you to have an open discussion on anything that's on your mind, this is focused strictly on what we're doing with the remaining funds. So I really ask that you keep it focused on what we are trying to do here and deal with this one issue for tonight in the next forum. And it's not intended to be a broad discussion of wish list items. There's a lot of things we can do with these funds if we so choose, but we want to be realistic and focus on the things that are high priority if that is the case. And most of you have received this list. It will help in what you're thinking, but these are some of the things that have been submitted to the board to look at with a lot of sincerity, because there are important issues on there, and some are even highlighted to give you a little bit better perspective of what our facilities department has recommended in terms of priority. And with that, I would like to go ahead, if there are no questions amongst the board members or any comments, ask if anyone would like to start with a statement.
I will. Hi, I'm Dave Jager, board member. I I have always maintained a feeling that we need to spend this money and not give it back. And I've said that forever. And I've kind of been the minority at times because of that attitude, but you need to listen to why. I would love to say we have $19.5 million that we're going to give back to the voters for this levy. The money, that $19.5 million, we saved basically because Chevrolet, the group that built our two schools, did an amazing job on a low bid. They did the job. That's why we have the money. Chevrolet is why we have this money. I'd love to give it back to you, but we have other needs that really need to be addressed. And I've been involved with the school district since, I've lived in the area since 1980. I've been in the school district since 1990. I've been in meetings with other administrators from 1990 on where we've talked about, and Critchlow is here tonight, so I can't lie, but he would bring up, and his predecessor would bring up things that needed to be done, and we would say, no, we got to do this instead, or we have to do this instead. We have left out, the well at Mountain View has been a discussion item, I think, for the last 20 years. And we have repaired, played with, we've never fixed that well, and it's been 20 years. We have other issues, starting with the junior high. Our long-range planning committee, I was on it, Mark was on it, said the first topic was to build 2 elementary schools, which we've done. The next step was to look at the auditorium at the junior high. It is a jewel. Very few school districts have anything like that. Our auditorium with the band spot there and everything. It's just a beautiful place. But it's 50 years old and it needs some help. We've had problems in the past with electrical. We've had problems in the past with the flooring. A lot of those we have fixed, but we have other things, including, and what I see as the main one, is not handicapped accessible. If you're in a wheelchair, you sit in the very back row. That's your only choice to sit in that junior high auditorium, is in the very back row. There's no access to the rest of that place. That needs to be addressed. There's no amount of money set on that because it's still kind of in limbo. We're not sure what it's going to cost. Ruth Vaselka, is she here tonight? Or Katie Thorner? We're on the long-range planning committee. They were the most vocal about focusing on that auditorium. And if you need other information, ask them about it. I don't know a lot about the junior high auditorium except for it's not handicapped accessible. But that is something, we don't even know the cost that we have to do to fix that up. Football field and track. If you've been to a football, I was at a football game 2 weeks ago. In our field, there's very little green on our football field. It needs help. It needs to be changed. It needs to be fixed. Our track, they can't run district meets on our track because it's got cracks in it and it's not safe. Both the field and the track are not safe. One school in our league will not play football on our field because they feel it is too unsafe to play football on. Those need to be fixed. The sad thing is, 4 years ago, we had a group get together and we had a person come in and talk to us about the football field and track and give us an estimate on an all-weather football field and fix the track, and it was $2.5 to $3 million. And that's what I've been hanging with for the last 4 years, $2.5 to $3 million. Hanford just built a new football field and track, $7 million. That is what it's probably going to cost us to fix those two. Now, good old Mokel here at East Valley, they have found somebody who will replace their dirt and their sod, their field, their grass and their dirt for like $250,000. And I think we need to look at that too. I am not trying to push a state-of-the-art football field and track. We need to have a fixed football field and track. We're looking at, well, if we go with Hanford, $7 million. If we can find something cheaper, great. But something has to be done with the football field and track. We have a law in our state that says, I'm terrible at making gross generalizations, but if a boy recognizes himself as a girl, he can go in the girl's bathroom. If a girl recognizes herself as a boy, she can go in the boy's bathroom. That is the law. We can provide a separate bathroom for those students to go in, but they don't have to do that. They can go into the other regular bathrooms if they want to. That's a law, whether you like it or not. It's a law, and we have to follow it. At our high school, in order to fix our bathrooms at the high school so the boys have stalls instead of just urinals, but have actual stalls and privacy, would be around $2 million. If you do the shower rooms along with it, and also there's an office in the shower room area that would need to be remodeled, it's closer to $6 million. But we need to do something. This is a list of over 400 parents, West Valley parents, who have signed this, saying use part of that money and put some stalls in the bathroom at the high school. Internet accessibility, that came up about a month ago. Our two new schools do not have total internet accessibility for if you're a teacher in fourth grade classroom and you need to have an emergency call. Some of them can't get through because they can't get on internet on their private phone in their classroom. That's deemed a safety issue. I totally agree. When I was at the middle school, when I was there for 15 years, my assistant spent any time he had to make a private call, it was in my office. Because his office was in the middle of the building. He had no internet accessibility in his office. If there's ever a spot in a middle school that needs internet accessibility, it's the vice principal's office. In order to look at, we're looking now at both of the new schools, Apple Valley and Summitview, and providing them with that capability. In order to keep all of our kids safe, not just those two schools safe, we need to look at that for the whole district. That's looking at another $1.5 million to get everybody to the point where you have internet accessibility in all schools for all private phones. The well at Mount View, $250,000. Roof replacement, Cottonwood, Mount View, White Hollow, we don't know. Roof replacement or repair, we don't know the cost of that yet. But I'll guarantee you, it's close to, the estimate was $1 million. Replace the water lines at the junior high. The water lines at junior high, there's something wrong with them, leaking or something, they have to be replaced. $500,000. Replace bleachers at the junior high. And we've all probably, if you had kids to go through, the bleachers at the junior high, when my boys were there 20 years ago, and we used to do AAU on weekends, it was a real challenge to get those in and out, and they're still there. 20 years ago, they were beat to heck, and they're still that way, and they're still there. They need to be replaced. Again, a safety issue. If you add all that up that I just talked about, you're talking about $12 million without knowing what the auditorium is going to cost, without knowing what the roof replacement is going to cost. There's $12 million of needed help in our district right now. Not things that we might need. These are things we do need right now. And so, in my opinion, I think it does not make sense to give that money back to the people and say, golly, it feels good, I'm giving you the money back that we didn't spend. And then in a year, we would come to you with what is called a capital projects levy for at least $15, $16, $18 million to do the work I just mentioned. Because we cannot ignore that work, it has to get done. And to me, it doesn't make any sense to give the money back to you now and feel good, and then in a year or 2 years, ask for it back. And I think most people would be a little bit bothered by that too. Why the heck did you give the money back 1 year and then ask for it the next year? That's part of my main point. My last point of everything is, and I wrote that history of lying, I'm sorry, but that's really what it is. I've worked on levies in this district since I came here. And one thing that we've always battled was people thinking that, oh, you can't trust the school district on how they're going to spend the money. When I came, 1980, White Hollow had just been built. I heard very soon after I got into White Hollow, that's where my offices were, that when they built White Hollow, they had another wing they could have put on, and they didn't. Rather than that, they built something at the high school. They improved the entrance at the high school. When White Hollow opened, it was full. They should have built that other wing into White Hollow so that it didn't start full. But instead, we used the money at the high school. With the high school levy, when it was finished, complaints were made, and actually with the high school levy, when we said it, and I didn't know this till Ryan Matthews showed it to me, we actually said, here's how much money we want for the high school, to build a high school. But we also said, if there's any money left over, we'll use it for other things that need to be done. Yeah, it was actually a statement made in the high school levy thing. After we did the high school, a lot of athletic fields were also improved. And they needed to be improved, and they were. And parents complained, patrons complained, again, because we used money from the levy to do something that we said we weren't going to do. In this one, we're very honest with you. We have $19.5 million left over because of the great work of Chevronell. And we want to spend it, I want to spend it on things that we need to get done in our district. This is not, we have 2 meetings. This went out to every person who has a mailbox in West Valley, saying we're having a meeting tonight and we're having a meeting at Harmon Center in 2 weeks. Every person in this district knows that we're having these meetings. This is not, we're not hiding anything. We're as open as we possibly can be, and I'm as open as I can be in telling you that this is what we want and this is why. And I hope that whenever the next levy ever shows up, that I don't have to hear that we weren't honest with you regarding this money. Because we have been, we are. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jager. Any other board member? Mr. Thorner?
Good evening, everybody. I first of all just want to say thank you for coming tonight. This is a great turnout. Thank you for your support of the West Valley School District. That's obviously why you're here, and we greatly appreciate that. Mr. Jager said a lot of things, many of which I don't agree with. My stance has been very simple. Mr. Jager's stance has been one way. Mine has been the same from the very beginning of this project. And that is, we made a promise to the voters. In 2018, when we ran this bond measure to build Apple Valley and Summit View, and that's all we would do. We didn't want to complicate it. It was intentional that is what the sell was to the voters. To do anything less is going back on that promise, and I will not be a part of that decision. That is not to minimize the list. The other promise that was made as part of the bond referendum was that it was the start of the long-range facilities plan. We needed to address Apple Valley, and some of you, Mr. Jager is correct. We convened with a consultant who led district patrons and community members on a long-range facilities plan. That's that's part of the list that you see. It's a very detailed plan. Here's what you need to do. Here are the needs of the school district, and here is how you can go about prioritizing those in the future. Because we also know that not only do we have these issues that we need to attend to, but to be strategic about, as the high school bonds fall off in a few years, that we are ready to look at other schools that need to be replaced. I've been on the school board since 2013. I've been in this community my entire life. I went all the way through the West Valley School District. We can play the game just like Mr. Jager did of how long he's been in the community. I can do the same thing. When I came on the school board in 2013, we ran 2 bonds that were failed because we tried to include a little bit of something for everybody by including the junior high. The voters said no. The voters narrowly passed this bond to build these 2 schools. We have needs, but we need to come up with other ways other than this money to pay for those needs. We already address our capital projects on a yearly basis in our annual budget. I think we can and should do more, but this money needs to be defeased back to the taxpayers, and then we can decide what we're going to do next and be very clear to the voters about what we need money on. Let you vote on that, and then we will proceed accordingly. The voters did not vote on this list. That does not mean we don't have these needs. I want a new track. My wife bugs me about it every day that we need a new track, a football field. I want these things. There are safety measures in there. I want us to improve our auditorium. There's a lot of things. There's not one thing on here that we shouldn't do. But not with this money. So, again, I think most of us would agree that when you give your word to something, and the many people that spent tireless hours campaigning for this bond said, Apple Valley and some of you, nothing more and nothing less, we need to follow through with that promise. I don't think anybody in this room would ever say that they would want to go back on a promise or their word, and I'm not willing to do that. Yes, the easy thing to do would be to eventually have a public hearing that we legally can have to use these monies, but that is not the right thing to do, in my opinion. I understand what Mr. Jager is saying. I respectfully disagree, but I just don't. To me, this is a simple issue. This is the way that you honor people: is you do what you say you're going to do, and we need to follow through on that. And we need to continue to exercise fiscal responsibility. It is not appropriate for governmental agencies or school districts to have extra monies and not reward. We see this in our everyday lives. It is time for us to be a leader. Washington State, for example, is running a budget surplus right now, and we have the highest gas tax in the nation. Do you think that the state is rolling that back? No. They should. They don't, as we're experiencing very high inflation. This is the right thing to do, is to defease this money back because it was what we promised to do.
All right, All right, thank you, Mr. Thorner. Anyone else? Mr. Meyer?
Sure. Not to take up too much more of your time, I want to hear you guys talk. But my 2 compadres, co-board members up here, I don't completely agree with either one of them. And what I'm going to do is inform you that, we are in the process of setting aside a certain amount of money for both Apple Valley and some of you to correct the safety issues and those things and the punch list in those 2 buildings, because we did tell you we'd give you a completed elementary school, a new one, with a capacity of 500 kids, which is significantly more than what we had before. Well, that money would only leave us with about 16 million of excess funds, for lack of a better term. And that amount, that's where I'm not in favor of what either one of my compadres say, in that I want to hear from you guys. So without going any further and complicating and rambling on, our meeting's, according to the schedule, is half over, so I'd like to hear from you folks. Thank you for being here. This is by far, and I've been to a significant number of public forums as a board member. I think I've been on this board for, 22 or 23 years, and I've seen a lot of change. And this is by far the largest group of people I've been able to make a fool out of myself in front of in all those years. So thank you for being here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Mokel?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk. Excuse me. As many of you know, I'm an educator. I've been an educator for nearly 30 years. I am a kid advocate. I want what is best for our kids. Safe buildings, state-of-the-art facilities, amazing equipment. These are all things that I want my students, I want my children, I want your children, your grandchildren to have an experience. Going back and looking at the video of the board meeting, the study session and board meeting in 2018, when the bond committee presented to the school board at the time what their recommendation was. I believe it was about 28 minutes and 20 seconds to 28 minutes and 30 seconds. Brian Matthews spoke about the 93 cents per thousand that was being put on the bond. And to finish his statement, he said to, and I wrote it down, but I left it at school today. But essentially, his words were, "For some of you in Apple Valley only." It's pulling me on both sides of my fiber. I want what's best for our kids. I coached football for 30 years. I think having a football stadium, a track, that is the jewel of our district would be amazing to have. I went to a soccer match this weekend, and the girls from both teams are sitting out in the elements with a portable speaker being wheeled out to the soccer field at a Big Nine team. Athletically, I think we could do better. The auditorium, I went to at Tandem Valley in 1st and 2nd grade. I went to some of you in 3rd and 4th grade. Some of you it was the same some of you that I went to that was torn down, and the the Tandem Valley is very close to the same school that I went to. They're tired. Some of you was tired. Apple Valley is tired, and we need to look at making changes at that school and at Mountain View. I live next to Mountain View. There's a pit in my stomach, however, that we are going against what the board at that time said and what the bond committee told you they were going to do with that money. And there's a pit in my stomach that we are going to use that money in other ways besides just those two schools. I teach PE, and in my simple PE mind, I have tried to simplify this situation in this way. My son comes to me and asks for $100 to go down to the mall and buy a gaming system. I give him $100. He goes down to the Valley Mall. It's on sale for $80. He buys the gaming system for $80. They give him $20. On his way home, he stops and he gets some Cinnamon Bears and some Pringles and about three 2 liters of Pepsi and spends that $20. He comes to me on Monday and says, "I need $30, Dad, for a controller." I'm probably not apt to give him the $30. However, if he would have brought that $20 back home to me, and then asks me shortly thereafter for $30, I'm probably going to give it to him. So the argument that to give the money back, to defease it back to the community, and then turn around and ask shortly thereafter for money back, that's how I'm trying to simplify it in my mind. That's all I have right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mokel. Well, what do I say to a lot of those things? But I did prepare some statements of my thoughts here, and I'm going to read those as opposed to speaking openly and just from the cuff here. So for me, what's important is to hear your perspective. What I wanted out of this community forum was, in terms of what we're going to do with those excess funds, is a clear majority picture of what we want, what the community really wants. I'm not wedded to one side or the other. I agree with both of them. They both have valid points. However, we can't overlook the fact that we're talking about close to $20 million here. We don't usually get this with a bond or levy that comes through. We just aren't going to get this the next time around. We need to be smart, we need to be strategic, and we need to be careful. So if the majority of our community says, give it back, make sure that's what you want, because I suggest you look at how much you really will get in return. It may not be as much as you think, or it could be more than you think, but you need to be informed about what that really means to you in terms of your tax return dollars, okay? There's another factor that I consider, okay? 14 million, roughly about 14 million of this money comes from the state. So our bond, what we passed, really literally paid for the schools with a little bit of an excess, perhaps $4 or $5 million or several million. I don't know exactly what the number is. But that other money that we're talking about, if you want to think of it in practical terms, it may have come partially from the state. And would we give that money back to the state? So ask yourself that question. That's part of something that we need to consider. I have not made my final decision on what I want to do, mainly because I want to hear from all of you first, because this is important. Like I said, we aren't going to get many opportunities like this in the long term. And, you know, I would suggest, or I would submit to you, that we promised to build those 2 schools. That's exactly what we did. There's one little caveat. We never anticipated having this kind of money left over from it. Sure, we might have had a few $1 million with the other schools, but nothing like this before. So again, I'm just asking that we all think about it. Again, I'm not proposing one way or the other. I just think we need to be careful, because that list, we've heard everyone say, I would like to do this list. We heard another person say we need to do this list. I'm saying we need to be careful and choose, if we want these things from this list that we feel they're important. Personally, if I would have a kid going to one of the schools, I want safe drinking water. I want safe pipes. I want to know that the things they use aren't going to hurt them. I also want to know that what we do is going to have a long-term effect, because some of these projects are long-term items that we can fix now. Another factor, waiting. It's going to cost us double. We already have experienced that by waiting on some of the projects. The price has more than doubled, almost tripled in some cases. Even waiting a year could cause some of these prices to go up. I mean, look at us, the gas pump. I went to get gas one day. 2 days later, I went to get gas. It went up 50 cents. Imagine what this is doing to building supplies and cost of labor if we are serious about some of the things that we need done. My other thoughts here, I wrote down some other things that I think just everybody should be aware of. You know, when we look at these things, we defease these funds now, and Mr. Jager had a point. If we go back the following year and ask for more money, we probably aren't going to ask for the same amount of money. We're going to ask for more because it's going to cost us more. So we need to weigh those factors as we go through this. I'm not saying it's wrong to give the money back. In all likelihood, I'm like the next person. Giving me money back, less tax, I like that idea. But I'm trying to be a realist here in terms of what this is going to mean to us in just a few short years. And it's important to think about it that way, because it feels good today, but tomorrow it won't feel so good if you're going to pay more. So I look at it like this. Is it in the best interest of the West Valley School District to return and defease all of these funds now and ask for a levy or bond to pay for some of these major products now? Or With the blessing and support of the community, keep all or some, because the third option that wasn't discussed is defeasing a portion of it and using some portion to pay for the most expensive or the most critical items, or defeasing some or defeasing some or part of these funds. And yes, a bond or levy will be needed in the next year or two. That would be more efficient and wise, considering that building materials and supplies are increasing almost exponentially. Should we consider a middle ground where half is given back to the community and half is used for critical and important items? That's one of the options on here, not exactly half, but different variations. Again, I'm not suggesting which or if any of those. I'm throwing these out there because as you come up to the podium and speak, I want to make sure that you've considered some of these considerations. And I realize that we all won't agree on what should be done with these remaining funds. I know that. It's a tough issue. It's in many ways, it's a pleasant place to be, that we have these kinds of options in front of us, facing us, but we need to make good decisions about them. Some of these items on this list, I don't need to go through them, but if you read through them, you can pick some of these items out. They have a sense of urgency to them, as I'm talking about. You know, waiting longer is just going to make it more difficult. And who knows what the future is going to bring. There may be worse consequences by waiting than if we do something now. You know, and last comment I have is, while I don't know what eventually the outcomes of these forums will hold and what they'll be, I urge all of my colleagues on the board to be open-minded about ideas, okay? I am here to listen to you today. That is my main goal. I'm not proposing one way or the other, as I've said several times. I want to hear from each of you. So for me, most of my time will be spent listening and really just guiding the meeting. I want to hear your thoughts. So as I move forward out of this portion of it, those are all the comments from board members. I want to thank all of you for sharing your perspective. I think that's vitally important. When you come to the podium, if it doesn't bother you, I would appreciate it if you present or say, I like option 1, I like option 4, whatever your druthers are, look at that and see which is most important to you in terms of us making a decision. It will help us in the long run. And lastly, I just want to say, as some of the others, thank you for being here tonight. This is, like I said, super important. We don't get many opportunities to do this, so please speak up, don't hesitate. If you hear something that you don't like, say that as well. There's nothing to say that you have to agree with everything that you've heard so far. We want to know what you think. So with that, I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to start calling individuals. My suggestion and what I would like to do is, if you would like to speak, form a line at the podium, and I'll call them in the order in which they appear. And I would ask you to start by, if you would, stating your name. That helps a lot.
Thank you for having the meeting. It's really nice that we got a chance to get input. My name is Bob Balderson. I've been a West Valley resident for 22 years. Been coaching since the Mariners made the playoffs the last time. I've coached 4 sports. I've worked at the high school and junior high. I wanted to say that, Ram Pride has a certain meaning, and that we have a chance to ask ourselves how we show that pride, whether it's by saying something can't be improved, or whether it's worth our time, talent, and treasure to take the bold step and improve it. As I look at the capital project task list, things on here that are included as high priority include things like well replacement, roof review, potential repair and replacement. My wife is a teacher at White Hollow, and to see buckets where the water's coming through the ceiling is alarming. And so as a voter that elected to have some money given to the district, I I don't want a rebate. I think it would be weird to ask that anywhere else. I want the money to be spent improving and investing in those things that generations of West Valley residents have chosen to invest in, that my children have gotten a chance to benefit from. When I think about fiscal responsibility, every year that passes makes this $250,000 well replacement more expensive. Makes this domestic water piping for $500,000 more expensive. I just wonder how prudent it is to say that these are optional. That I know that it's hard to take the bold, decisive action that we're asking the school board to make, but in my opinion, that's what I do if I'm on a trip to Hawaii, right? I know the beautiful destination that I'm going. I know it might be a bumpy ride. I'm going to go there, and I'm hoping that who's ever behind the steering wheel there, captaining, piloting that ship, knows what they're doing, and takes us there. Our cross-country team, shout out to some of the kids back here. Both of them ranked top 10 in the state right now. Our track in the spring, other schools will not run on it. And I just ask, if it's not good enough for someone else's kid to run on, is it good enough for our kids to run on? I know that they give everything they've got when it comes to showing their Ram pride with action, not with words. And it makes me very proud that I get to work with some of these kids every day. My opinion, defeasing all of this money would be counterproductive, and I would recommend either option 4 or option 3. I would also like to see action taken with our athletic fields. At some point, we can no longer say certain things are, in Mr. Jager's word, state of the art. At a certain point, we have to say the standard is the standard. And at 4A level, we have been shown what the standard is by what other districts have, and I would encourage the board to consider that as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Next.
Sharon Van Vleck, and option 4. I'd like to thank the board for allowing this public forum on the money in question. I feel the board is being put into a position that never should have happened in the first place. The board guaranteed voters that only 2 elementary schools would be put on the ballot. That's what they did, and that's what the voters approved, and that's what was built. You cannot promise money that you do not know would even exist. There's no broken promise to anyone. That was put in writing. Our board should feel proud of what was accomplished and that there are extra funds available. The number one priority of the school board is our students. Our board has consistently stated that to the community. And it is my hope that we'll continue with the $19 million in excess funds. We have a track that's out of rotation for hosting regionals because it's no longer meeting required standards of our league. Those events would give money to the district we are currently losing. Our bleachers are 30 years old. I attended the last home football game and saw 2 people fall down the steps going up to the press box. Not old people like me, and not students messing around. I believe it would cost approximately $48,000 to put in handrails, but I'm sure a lawsuit would be much worse. Fixing a well, a bathroom to meet state requirements, fixing roofs, and all of the other many things that are needed right now are all good for our students. The board has outlined options, and I appreciate that. I would also appreciate a list at the October 18th public forum on what the priority needs might be listed under each of those options. I've spoken with many community members asking them to attend these forums, and a common response is that they have gone to meetings before and they felt our board did not listen. They also stated it was their number one reason they no longer felt like approving bonds or levies. I told them, you listened to me before and I would be trying again. I also told them it's not about the board. It's not about a promise made to adults. It's about our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Susan Olden, I teach at some of you. My kids went to some of you, my grandchildren are going to some of you, my nephew behind me went to some of you, cousin went to some of you when I was K through 8, so.
Just pull the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm like some of you through and through. I have stated my opinion before that I think the money should be returned to the voters. However, I'm just going to leave that go just because I think that's how this bond was written, and I believe in integrity. I don't care about the little bit of money I'd get back. It has to do with integrity and a promise. But, however, tonight, I'm going to make a proposal for some of you, and right now this money belongs to some of you in Apple Valley, so I feel pretty good about saying this. I want to thank the board or whoever decided we are going to get some more playground equipment at some of you, but it's going to go down on that blacktop. And what we really need, playground equipment is great, but it's not always about the amount. It's sometimes about where that location is. And I would like to have a proposal that we put another one up in the northwest corner behind the walking track, which would also service the community if they were going to Little League games, soccer, practice. And that would allow us to have another area of a playground. Because when Summitview was built, we lost three very important things. We lost a west playground, we lost an east playground, and we lost a courtyard. We lost a lot of different places where we could put that 500 K through 5 kids that we don't have now because all the equipment is down below. And so that is the main reason I came, is just to ask that if we could have, in addition to what you're gonna put below, if we could have something, so we could say K through 3, you can play up here or whatever, because that was a lot that we lost by building that school. I mean, it's a big, nice, beautiful school, but we lost a lot of playground where we could have split the kids up. And so that's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you. Do I understand you to select option 1 then? The fee's 100%?
Well, no, I believe it's, I believe that money needs to be left. Some of that money needs to be left, whether it's in an escrow account, maybe returned later, it needs to be left in an account. Wherever it was, I don't remember how much it was, 4 million, for those 2 schools, because just this year, things have happened, the flooring, the internet, the lost phone calls, all of this stuff. We will not know. There was leakage in our building too, which has all been covered under warranty, but we don't know what's gonna happen like 2 years from now. Is the sprinkler system gonna work? So I always believe that if there's money, it should be kept in escrow for those 2 buildings. To fit, for a certain amount of time, I guess, because they explained to us it didn't have to be returned within a time. And so I just think issues come up, and if we give it all back, then what if something major comes up? What if they fix the internet and it still isn't fixed? Because that's a major problem in that school, is just phone calls dropped as you go through. You can't send things, you can't, sometimes you have to go over by a window or run outside and stuff, so
All right.
that's
Thank you.
my feeling there.
Next.
My name is Jody LaQuay. I believe the money should be returned because the board made a promise. I actually don't trust the board to keep their promises because West Valley School District promised to educate my granddaughter. They have failed miserably. I have a question. How old are you? I'm 16. You're 16. Okay. Do you know how much 4 times 4 is? No? Okay. Does the board know? My granddaughter is in the 8th grade. She is one of those special children. Only thing is she's got short-term memory retention because she had a bleed on her brain because she was born at 25 weeks. The school does not take it into consideration that instead of one child will learn ABC in 2 days, and it takes her 6. She learned when she was in the 2nd grade. Don't ask for help. You won't get it. I have pulled her out. I'm homeschooling her. I started her back in the 3rd grade. It took her 5 months to go through the 3rd grade, and she has straight A's, 96 to 98%. She is now finished the 4th grade math with A's. She's getting her other 2 subjects will be done by the end of November. It is pretty bad when you can't trust the school district, when they tell you, bring your children, we're going to educate your children. Oh, yeah, we'll educate your children if they're in this class here. But if they need a little extra help, forget it, we just pass them on. Because we get money for having the kids in there. So no, return the money.
Thank you. Just a reminder to everyone, I've been pretty lenient here. We've got a number of people speaking. Please try to limit it to 3 minutes. If time permits, we'll do a second round of these, okay? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Matt Linder, and largely I'm in favor of option number 1, contingent on fixing anything that is incomplete with Summit View or Apple Valley. The previous bond measure, when there was a wish list of items that was attached to it, I felt that that was poorly designed, poorly managed, and poorly planned. I voted against that bond measure. I voted for the Apple Valley and Summit View bond measure gladly, because it was discreet, it was defined, there was a set of accomplishments to be done. And the way I think of this is, if my contractor on a project, rebuilding my garage, something like that, somehow came in under budget, would I expect him to hold on to the money, or would I expect him to return the money? So the way I look at it, coming in under budget and on time is a laudable accomplishment. It has earned the trust of the voters for responsible fiscal management, and that trust is best retained. That trust of the voters is best retained by returning the money to the voters. When you do that, especially with the long-term maintenance issues and the long-term capital planning, that is when you're going to see the return on that trust that is in the bank, that people will be able to say, we did well here. Please trust us again. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Rhonda Hutton. I work in the district, and I live in the district, and I have I've had kids in the district, and I brought these kids with me tonight, and a couple of other track and cross-country parents also. As a parent, I've lived a lot of my life at that field and on the track, and with the band, the football team, the track team, the cross-country team, you name it. I'm easy, because when I started working in West Valley, I didn't even live in West Valley, and when the Highland ballot came to my house, I voted yes without even reading a single word. Whatever you give to me, I am going to give back to you. I'm sorry that you're in a position that we didn't even barely make the last one. That's what breaks my heart, because I do come to this district every day to work my tail off for kids. The track has numerous depressions in it. It has a center that the lanes are so, or the depressions are so deep that the tripping hazards are terrible. And I would please ask you to go walk the track. And as you know, I'm sure that your wife would agree. The lane 1 was repaired 3 years ago, but the repair has disintegrated. The cracks are growing in length and width, and they're affected by the freezing weather. Probably by spring, they are pretty sure you might not have a home meet because of the failing track. I've been in the stands where start of the races have to be started over because the blocks move and kids are holding the blocks from behind the blocks. So now you not only have the starter that's injured, but you've got kids behind that can be injured. We had an injury last year to a child from the track. As a community member, I'm thrilled that you have this money left over. We voted to give it away to you. We trust you. I trust you. And I will vote for you again no matter what you decide. But please, I'm thrilled that I also work at Mountain View, and there are things out there that we've got to get fixed. So I know that you're going to spend the money right, and I would go for number 4, please, please. Take it while you've got it. I don't know that the people will give it back to you again. And I know that's a political situation, but it might be time to do what's right for all of the rest of us.
Thank you. Next.
First off, thank you all for being here and doing this. I think this is a wonderful thing. I was shocked when I got the information that there was so much money left over. And my name is Tony McCarty. I have a small ranch out in the Tampico area, and he did it at the right time because I still got to pay my October tax. My frustration, first off, is that the school was closed for roughly approximately 2 years, and we still paid taxes. I called the county. Why am I paying school tax when the schools are closed? You have to take that up with the superintendent. I said, you're the building agent. I said, what happens if I don't pay my taxes for the school only? Because also the libraries are closed and we paid for that. And I love the library. And basically was told I'd be fine and all my money would have been sent back and I'd still have to pay everything. That's fine. I understand that. I don't, but I have to say that. For 58 years, I've had a member of my family in the school district. Whether it's my spouse, my sister-in-laws, my brother-in-laws, 4 of my kids graduated from here, the last one in 2017. 3 played sports. The track sucks. Let's be realistic. I walk it for exercise. It's horrible. But you're not going to have me sit there and agree to $7 million for a football field when you have enough people here with tractors and orchard experience, and you have golf courses that know how to take care of lawns, that you could get that information. HVAC, contact Perry Tech. Buy the equipment, have them set it up. Praise them, and their students get experience. Also, this comes to $13,874. That leaves $5 million left. Now, nobody said anything about where our taxes went for 2 years when the schools were closed. Nobody's saying anything about our taxes for next year, which I just got my little card saying how much I'm going to pay, and went up $12,000. I can barely afford gas. I can barely afford food. You were right when you said Washington State had an excess of taxes for the last 2 years, and we're the only state that never had a break. Has not had a break in gas tax, sales tax, land tax, capital gains tax. So there's $5 million, plus we're still all paying taxes. We need a break. I'm sorry. I believe in a small rebate. Not enough to take away all this stuff. All this stuff needs to be done, and I appreciate you doing this. But there's some other options to look at. $7,800,000 for a football field. The track needs to be fixed. I agree. It is horrible. But the football field, you've got too many experienced people here with enough equipment. We come out there and tear that thing up in a weekend and have it all resodded. And again, are you going to give us a break next year for the taxes if you have all this already done? I think that's a valid question. Coach, you're a coach, yes? When my son and daughter came to me to ask for $100, especially this time of year, they were out picking apples, just like I did as a kid. It might be something to consider for your son. That's how we make do. If I was old enough, I'd still go out there and pick apples, not pears. They weigh too much. And I don't do pruning anymore or thinning. You got some options, gentlemen. And really, bless your heart for doing this. So my option is option number 5. Hear us out. Even if you send me a check for $250, I'd have a heart attack. But I would put that to my next year's land tax, which is going to go up again. I got 16 acres of land. I'm being run out of the state by taxes. We're all being run out of the state by taxes. We need a break. That doesn't mean what you did this itemizing was awesome, because that lets us know if you got a well that hasn't been fixed for 20 years, fix it. I just fixed mine. They doubled the price from 7 years ago and I had to fix it again. And if you know that there can't be new wells from Slavin on west. So are your hands going to be tied even worse when you get the meters on the well telling you how much water you have to use? You've got a heck of a decision. But again, I really thank you for doing this. God bless everything y'all do.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next.
I want to applaud the gentleman just spoke. I think it was very, very eloquent. I hope I can do half as well. My name is Gary O'Halloran. I've lived in the West Valley School District since 1976, and I'm still in the same home. As he mentioned, I pay my property taxes twice a year now, and they're due at the end of the month, my second half. 32% of my property tax goes to the West Valley School District. Somebody mentioned something about going back to the state, and the state had part of this money. There's a state schools, part 1, that I pay 18% of my property tax to. There's another state school, part 2, that I pay 9.8 of my property tax to. Then there's I consider the Yakima Library also a school thing. I put it into but my property taxes, I'm here to share with you, now are higher than my original house payment was, which included my property taxes, because the bank took them out automatically. I just wanted to share that with you. So, then secondly, I'd like to say, again, I commend the fellow that was before me. I hope I can say this hopefully correctly. I've got a question. Why are we having this meeting here? Why aren't we having a meeting at one of our schools? Can I ask that? Is that appropriate, inappropriate? It just surprises me.
Sure. I'm not sure I have the best answer for that, but there's probably 2 good reasons. One is being out in the community. I get that. The schools, Dr. Finch, maybe they're being used, or maybe they won't house enough of the people that we want to get into this location.
I think we ought to be proud of what we built, and we should,
Yeah,
I wish I could have been there, or, see it, so.
Oh, that's a valid ask, so it's something we can look at as we do more forums down the road. So thank you for that suggestion.
Secondly, I'd like to comment that I have 2 children that have gone through the West Valley School District, and I'm very proud of both of them and very proud of their education. In fact, my daughter just received the 3rd highest award that the Navy gives out for a civilian. She currently works for the federal government. So thank you for the great education she received here in West Valley.
Congratulations to her.
And I'm here to say that I'm for proposal 1 just because of accountability and just to share with you. So you can tell by what I said, but I do, with a couple of the comments that came up, one, why are we waiting? If there's a well that needs to be fixed, we hear about this thing out at the firing center and so forth and so on, and I think, my God, somebody brought up, we need a well replaced or an emergency generator. What are we waiting for? What are you guys waiting for? My God, I don't get it. And number 2, first thing I was going to ask was, is it totally legal? And I know my time's probably up, and I should get out of here.
Okay.
And you want me out of here. But is it legal to take one thing that was set aside for something and do something else with it? Is that really legal? Or have you guys checked into that?
Yes, we have.
So it is, I guess.
Yes, we have.
So is it legal?
There's a process under which that we can follow that allows for us to, as Mr. Strong explained earlier, that these are not the public hearings. These are just community forums to gain some impact.
But that's why we're here.
But eventually, if the school board decides that we are going to utilize the money on other capital projects, much like when we have a budget hearing, we publish that in the newspaper and we have the hearing. Well, that will be another hearing that is had about using these monies, and the law specifically prescribes for us to be able to do that. And the resolutions passed by the board relative to this bond do allow the board to go through that legal process. And yes, we have vetted that with our legal counsel.
Okay, so just not simple, if there's a process.
There is a process. I mean, and this is not to get too take up any more of everybody else's time, but I mean, effectively, we're in the middle of trying to figure this out. Okay, and at the end of these hearings, board's probably going to have some discussion about where do we go next. That'll all take place during public board meetings, which will be advertised. And if we do, in fact, go forward with having a public hearing, which may lead to a vote on the use of these funds, that, again, will happen all in public and all advertised and do that. But we're as Mr. Strong said, we're trying to take a temperature, and we're trying to have an interaction that school board meetings, by their nature of the formality behind them, don't allow us to have. So you and I having this this open dialogue in front of everybody, that we can't do that in school board meetings. That's kind of the cool thing about this, is that we get to have this conversation. And I can enlighten you and the rest of the group and talk. So that's.
And just rest assured, there is a process for this. This, again, as I stated earlier, is just to hear the community's perspective on these issues, because it's a big one.
This wish list is part of that process.
That is something for you to be aware of, some of the current needs. There may be others, but this is to give you an idea. It's a starting point. It's not an ending point at this point. Okay, I don't mean to cut you off, but I do.
No.
There's another people waiting behind you to speak.
I want you to know, too, I picked apples once as a kid, and that was my first job, picking cherries out here on Italian Hill and picking apples, and it's a very important part of our process in growing up, and accountability for where the money goes to and where the money comes from. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Hello, I'm Josh Bianski. We actually just relocated to Yakima in January, so we're new. And I'd like to just open up by saying that part of the reason that we moved to the West Valley School District with a lot of districts to pick from in an area that we had never been to was the investment in the school system itself. So I would be in favor actually of option 4 and go a complete pivot to 180. We moved here specifically because of that investment. We were at a district that was half the size of this, that had sports facilities that were 3 times as good as this. It was amazing to me to see an area that had this many people, this population, this size district, with facilities that are simply just so poor. Now, I happen to have 2 sons. One's in high school. He's part of the track team, so obviously I have a little bit of a biased interest on that. I have a son that's a football player, a baseball player, spent a lot of time out there as well. But they're also honor students as well, so there's academic needs. I have a son that won't drink the water at the middle school because it tastes that bad and that metallic. And coming from Michigan, which is where we just moved from, you may have heard of a water problem in Michigan.
I'm from Michigan. Michigan's my alma mater. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I've heard the anecdotes about, well, if my son spent this, my anecdote back to that is, if my wife goes out shopping and we have a budget of $100 to spend, and she comes home with a bunch of extra stuff and stays within that budget, we consider that a win at our house because it's within our budget. We promised that money. It was voted on here. I didn't vote on it, but I would be in favor of supporting something back into the district for things that are going to actually better the district and invite people to come move into the area. At the end of the day, the best way to generate revenue is to have more people coming here, and having resources and facilities invites new people to come into the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
First, I want to thank you for listening to us, first of all. I appreciate your comments, Mr. Thorner and Mr. Mitchell. I would rebut that comment by saying, if I went to go buy a new car and I was given a budget of $50,000, but I found one for $30,000, is my husband going to be really happy if I go spend it at Nordstrom's or Macy's, the other $20,000? No. I voted for 2 schools. You got 2 schools. We know, as patrons of this district, you are going to ask us for more money, and you're going to continue to ask us for more money. But if you play a bait and switch with, we're going to build 2 schools, oh, but we're going to spend this on, every school has a wish list, and I understand, listening to all the track people, there is a wish list, and that's probably the highest priority. But if you play this game of moving the shells and saying we're going to do this, but if I have extra, I'm going to spend it on whatever I want, it's going to be very difficult to regain my trust and make me say, sure, let me shell out a few more $100 on top of what we're already paying again and again, because I have a junior in high school, I have a student at Wazoo. It's very expensive. If you want to continue to get my tax dollars, because my kids are almost done, you need to be honest with us, and that's why I love the last bond, because you came out and said, this is what you are paying for, and this is all we are paying for. Don't play bait and switch. Be honest. If you need more money, we know you will. Make a list and let us vote on it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Megan Mock, and I used to work in the school district, but I am now a small business owner. So previously, I have voted yes for everything, in West Valley. I was all in. But since October of 2020, I've seen things just crumble. And it's been very disappointing. I've never agreed with Mr. Thorner more. Thank you for being emphatic about your choice in wanting to give the money back. I think that's the right thing to do because it's what was agreed upon or what was claimed at the beginning. So, a couple reasons. I think you let down the secondary kids in October of 2020. There was a community forum where Mr. McMurray says, some kids have gotten jobs, so we're not going to open. So I pulled my kids at that point in time, and they go to Riverside and LaSalle, where they are functioning on budgets significantly smaller than West Valley is. And we're paying for that. And I'm completely satisfied with that because the culture there is significantly better than it is around here. Significantly less corrupt. I know Mr. Finch, or Dr. Finch, you're working towards trying to find more time to spend COVID money. So there's like, a chunk of that hanging around. In a board meeting last spring, Mr. Connolly had the great idea of free play, free sports. Sounds like sports needs some money. So I'm not sure why community members who don't have kids in sports at this school would want to pay for that track when the kids who are using the track, nobody's got to pay for it. None of them have to pay for it to participate. I think that was a ridiculous policy there. And then the corruption and the teachers' unions, the teacher union's president's husband sitting on the school board is a corruption that I don't want to spend any more money, any of my money, for anything going on around here because of those things. So I'd appreciate my money back. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Next.
Hi, my name is Hunter Olden, and I'm in favor of a partial defeasance and then using the remaining funds for anything related to safety. It looks like there's a lot of things on the list earmarked for safety, and I think that's really important. One thing that I'm really concerned about is safety at Mountain View. It's where my daughter goes to school, and it's where my wife works. And I know the generator and the well is a big issue because I regularly hear that they can't flush the toilets when the power goes out. And just the idea that a whole school of children and staff can't use the bathroom and flush toilets for an extended period of time when it could be fixed with additional money just is concerning to me. One other thing that has been brought to my attention that's also concerning is just the security of the building. It does have a secure entrance at the front, but the whole back and side of the building is not connected to the main building. There's approximately 4 classrooms and 2 portables not connected to the main building with the buzzer entry. And anybody could walk in off the street at any point in time while students and staff are walking to and from the classrooms to the main building, compromising the whole security of the whole building. So I think fencing or a hallway that secures the portables and the additional building in the back, or a combination of the two, would fix the problem. And I think that would be a good way to spend some of the money from the bond.
Okay. Do you have a preference of which of those 2 options for defeasing? You said partial defeasance, so option 2 or 3?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list of, whichever one allows for most of the safety items from the list that you provided us tonight. Okay. So probably option 3, just based on the amount of safety items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, my name is Eric Melander. I think I know a number of you here. Just for background, my wife's a teacher with the district. My father was a superintendent. My mother was a teacher. I just have all sorts of friends, family who are teachers. So I put 3 so far kids through West Valley. They're doing well. Big sports, kids played volleyball, ran track, soccer. And so you would think that I would want to take the money and this overage and keep it. I cannot disagree more if we do that. And I completely agree with you, Mr. Thorner, because when we had this levy, and I was more involved in it, you know, we were looking at middle school, we were looking at different options, but they did not pass until we had a very set goal. 2 elementary schools, that was hard enough to pass, okay? So the thing, there's a couple things, is when we floated this bond, everybody had a chance to vote on it, right? That's not gonna be the case here. So, you know, we are going to have X amount of people who are not included in this process. And the second thing that I can tell you is if you do this, your chance of passing, I think, a bond in the future is going to be very, very difficult. And it's already difficult enough now. So that will be the rally cry for anybody who does not want to support the levy, right? We know that. The other thing is I don't have any problem absorbing, I'm fortunate. I don't have any problem absorbing anything that's going on right now in the economy. And I don't have a problem paying, you know, for new levies, right? You know, my kids will be gone. We all know the process, you know. We invest in a generation and they move forward, you know, and then we do the right thing. So that's, I guess, that's my point is I don't have a problem supporting anything in the future as long as it's done the right way, it's done with integrity, and we do what we said we would do that the voters voted on, okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, hi, my name is Jennifer Maxwell. I'm a mother of 3 children here in West Valley, under the age of 9. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody here very much. For Summit View Elementary, it is gorgeous, and my children very much enjoy that environment, and the children, the teachers there, it is a very beautiful thing. What I've heard tonight are 2 very strong arguments and very passionate people in this community. And that's why I love living here in Yakima, is the passion and the joy that I get to be here with. And the 2 arguments that I've heard is that we have really strong, urgent needs for our children that are safety. And then the other one is about what our future promises are politically. And when I weigh those 2 options between the chances of, will I have political goodwill for money in the future versus this very urgent need now for our children, I am worried about our children. It terrifies me to hear that there is a well at Mountain View that could potentially poison our children in the future, where they would lead to learning disabilities, other types of issues when I think about that. It terrifies me when I think about there not being cell phone coverage. If, heaven forbid, knowing in the environment that we live in, that there could be a shooter in one of our schools and the teacher could not call for help because there wasn't good cell phone coverage in our schools. And so for that reason, I think that it's very important that we prioritize the safety of our children now. And we were given this great opportunity. It is mentioned by many people that this opportunity was very rare. I don't know how we came into such great fortune. I personally believe that maybe someone is watching over us to take care of maybe some of these urgent needs. I know that's my personal belief, but I do think it would be very foolhardy to not think about that very carefully. And I appreciate so much everyone's opinion about thinking these things strategically, because I think you're right. There is a balance between these things. And so I guess I am in support of either options 3 or 4, but in general, my support is going to the safety of our children. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name's Dan Enciso. Is that all right? Yeah. All right. I wasn't planning on talking tonight and stuff like that, but I just listened to everybody and stuff, listened to Mr. Jagger and Mr. Strong and Mr. Thorners. I think we should, I'm in favor of option 4. I coach at West Valley for the Scouts, so I coach 4 different youth teams, and you guys take good care of us, let us use the fields and stuff like that, but by going to all these different schools and seeing what they offer, my son just started freshman ball this year, and we went to Hermiston the other day, and we went to Sunnyside the week before, and seeing their facilities, ours are trash. I mean, they're horrible facilities. The track is horrible, the press box is horrible, seating's not real comfortable. Concessions, bathrooms are actually not too bad, actually. But that's probably the best thing I can say about the stadium out there and stuff. But like I said, I just think we have this money now. And I mean, I just like, everybody's using like a little story and so that's why I'll use mine. I did half my fence with vinyl fencing. I couldn't afford to do the whole thing. I wish I would have did it because now it costs twice as much, just like Mr. Jagger said. If we give this money back and then ask for more money later, you're gonna have to ask for twice as much or a little more than, quite a bit more. So I just think you should use the money while you have it. I mean, I'm not looking for rebate like a gentleman out here said before and stuff like that. I think the money should be used towards the students. Like I said, my kids are pretty much done. I have one in high school now, but like I said, he's a freshman. My other daughter's done with school, but I'm more than willing to support the community and support the kids. Like I said, I have 7 and 8-year-old kids that I'm coaching. I want them to have nice facilities and stuff. I mean, like I said, I'm very, very jealous. I grew up in Sunnyside. I've been in West Valley for 30 years. And to go there 2 weeks ago and look at their facility and talk to the AD down there, and they came in, and again, I know 7.5, that seems like a lot. And I know the gentleman thought, hey, it's just for the football field. I think the proposal's for the track and football field, not just a football field. So I think it's taking care of both needs, football and also track. And obviously roofing, wells, that's obviously very, very important also. But I just think we should definitely look at keeping this money while we've been given this gift. And again, thank you for the beautiful schools and stuff like that. My kids didn't get to enjoy Apple Valley. It was done too late. But hey, thank you for your time. Sorry.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Next.
My name is Jack Van Vleck. I retired assistant principal at the junior high. I am for option 4. The bottom line, I believe, is this. If you, as a board, choose to not fund these projects with the money that we currently have available, and if you decide, well, we'll put that on the next levy or the next bond, these people that are complaining about their property taxes are going to have a rude awakening, because if those items are projected onto the next levy, we're not going to pass a levy. I will tell you right now, there are enough people, once they see those increases, I think it's egregious not to take the money that we have available and put it into, servicing kids. And that's the bottom line. Okay?
Thank you. Next.
I'm the last one.
No, you got some more behind you.
They've got your back. So I'm Bradley Brooks. I teach here in the school district, and even though I'm not here as a teacher, none of you would ever see that because I'm a teacher. So I don't envy the position that you're in with the situation. Having taught social studies through the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections, I can tell you that offering political opinions is not something I normally do, and I'm not going to. But you should know this. I sat through all those long-term facilities committee meetings, all 13 of them in the dead of the summer. I know this list just as well as any of you do. I can also tell you that I have been a volunteer for the last 5 or 6 bond campaigns. I've had people say, hey, great job, you guys are doing awesome. I've also had people throw things at me. So what I am telling you is this, though. Every time we ran a bond, frequently all I hear is, you lied about the high school. For the record, I didn't even live here when that happened. Like, I was in school. Couldn't even tell you how many years ago. Probably should know that as a social studies teacher. But I'm not telling you what I think you should do because I don't really know. I mean, that's your job, not mine. But I'm just saying there's consequences if you don't give that money back. There's consequences if you do. But I think you should know that as someone who has run those campaigns and helped, it will be extremely difficult for you to convince a lot of people if you don't give the money back. I understand the fiscal implications. Trust me, I've sat on all those meetings. You have my report. I contributed to that too. I think you have to weigh, yes, we have problems now, and I know that. I'm a coach, I'm a teacher. Sorry, I know some of you really need a new track. But those are things you have to weigh as immediate concerns now or ever passing anything again in the next 50 years. So, good luck.
Thank you. All right, thanks for your candidness. Next.
My name's Shane Moore. I have 2 students in the district now, with a third one who'll be starting in a few years. And I'll just start, I am in favor of option 4. I would be willing for option 3 as a compromise. But I do believe that we need to spend this money. The bond as passed was fulfilled. We had no idea we would have $19 million extra. Now, I will share, I actually moved here to the Yakima a month after the bond, but the bond was one reason we chose our house in the West Valley School District. As someone who's lived in 5 different school districts in this state and has only seen 3 bonds pass in that 20 years of those 5 different districts, I was excited to move into a district that passed a bond. I hadn't seen that happen that often. So I believe, though, that well, I understand giving back, and I actually did have a question. My understanding, this money is collected through property taxes, so it would not be a rebate check going to constituents. It would be through property taxes, correct?
Yeah, so in essence, the bond measure gives the school district the ability to go to the assessor and the treasurer to collect a certain amount of proceeds based upon the assessed valuation. And we will send that to the county in December for all of the voted upon items. So by defeasing the bond proceeds, that's the term of art that's used, we would be actually be asking the county to collect less from the taxpayers. So it wouldn't be a rebate check, you're right, but that's technically how it happens. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that was the answer I was expecting. And so as I look at someone who did the math of what I would be saving on mine, it would be around 1.5 to 2% of what I already pay. And that is, so to me, it is pennies on the dollar that when a few years, when you come back and instead of not just asking for 50 million for 2 schools, you now have to ask for 70 because we didn't spend the 19 to 20 now.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Hello, Tim Critchlow, ex-employee. I was here for 19 years, and from day one, it was a fight for money. Some of the things that I've heard today, and I can't disagree with anybody's point of view. It's all on there, and unfortunately, it's your guys' job to figure it out. But we have pushed certain maintenance needs of this district. We keep pushing it back, pushing it back. If we would have fixed them 5 years ago, it would have been half the cost of now. I am 100% in agreement with Dave, and I go for option 4. I look at this money as a gift. Even if you just leave it in the bank and get the interest off there, I think I saw $814,000 or $814,000 annually. That's going to do a lot towards a lot of the needs we have. I've heard wish list. These items are not wish lists. It is for an educational environment that kids can come to school and they don't have buckets by their desk where they're not cold or hot. It's needs, not wish list. I would hope that the track, that goes clear back at the high school days. We knew, the district knew that that track needed to be a new base, and we put it off, and we put it off, and we're still putting it off. My understanding is the track's having a contractor work on it this summer, but that's just another patch, another Band-Aid. The auditorium is a great facility that needs to be updated. Our kids deserve to have that operating, not, oh, that doesn't work, skip that, that doesn't work. And it all comes to money, and like I said, for 19 years, all I did was fight for money. And so this is a gift. We need to use this money prudently, but we have things that Dave didn't bring up. We have chillers, boilers. We have a lot of stuff, roofs, and if a roof goes, the facility gets damaged, and the kids can't have a good environment to learn in. We need this money to keep the district and bring it up to a standard of a good educational environment.
All right, thank you for your comments. Next.
Good evening. My name is Felicia Sanchez. I am new to the West Valley District. I will be a part of the district for the next 13 years. I am all in favor of option 4 and focusing on safety. My child goes to a tandem, and he's out in a portable in which there are no running water, there's no restrooms, and I fear this winter when he has to walk across the icy surfaces out there that there may be an accident. Also, when he comes home with bloody noses because he's not getting enough water, that's an issue for me. It's also an issue at Mountain View when there's no good water. It's very important that we send our kids to school to be safe. We think about active shooters, we shouldn't have to think about water. And so, thank you for this night. As you can tell, I'm a little nervous speaking, but
You're doing fine.
we need our children to be safe. It doesn't matter who they are, what grade they are, but our kids need to be safe every day.
Thank you. Next.
Hello. Cynthia Martinez White Diamond. Many of you know me. I'm making myself known in the community. And I've been taking notes today based on the individuals who have felt compelled to speak. And I'm hearing a lot of option 1s and option 4s. In my previous life as a leader, I know it is a challenging thing to make everybody happy. And what I'm not hearing much of is a compromise. You're either getting an option 1 or an option 4 when you guys are providing about 5 different options. I absolutely hear what you're saying about respecting what we've said and giving back money to show that we're being earnest in what we're saying, good stewards of that funds and good stewards of the goodwill given to the community behind us. Yep, as somebody who's been a part of the community and returning to the community and paying taxes on this, yeah, with the way things are in Washington, I'd love to get a tax break. I'm also very much hearing what you're saying, Dave, and those also that have been talking about the safety issues. My first thought when I heard we had extra money was, let's just use it to help the extra school or the other schools that need the money. And then I heard somebody else say, well, why not just give it back? And I was like, oh, okay. So my leader brain says, listen to both sides of the story and find a middle ground to find a compromise. The one option I'm not hearing too many people say is option number 2, which is the option I'll vote for, or would vote for. Give some of that money back to say, we want to fix these schools. Community, look at this, because I would ask. I know Atanum got some upgrades. White Hollow and Mountain View really need upgrades. Eventually, I'm going to assume somebody's going to ask for money for those 2 schools to rebuild them as they did Summit View and Mountain View. When is that going to come at us? These funds that will be returned to us in the sense that we'll be paying less taxes, will we see that come at us and then turn around and ask for money back at us? Could we say, we will take some of these funds per your okay to do these upgrades that are needed to ensure the safety of our schools, and then take leftovers, pull aside leftovers intentionally for you to give it back so that you also understand that we're not going to take all the money that you gave us. We're going to split it down somewhere. We're going to split it so we go with the priority first and then give you the leftover to, in a way, you're not going to please everybody, but try your best to make more people happy, I would say, based on what I'm hearing today. So, option 2.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Tam Evans Edmonston. I've lived in the West Valley District for 62 years. I trumped you, Dave. And so I came tonight because I don't work for the school district, even though I grew up in the district. My parents owned a business in the district. My girls were raised in West Valley. We've lived here, like I said, forever. But many of the young parents who I work with in the healthcare field have been complaining about things going on in West Valley. And I was just kind of out of it for a long time because my last daughter graduated in 2009. And so I kind of was listening to what they said. And they go, no, you need to go online and look and see what all's going on. Some of the things I couldn't believe. It's just not the same West Valley, for one thing. But as far as this levy money goes, I voted for Summit View and Apple Valley. I will say I did not vote for some of the levies because I don't know when it switched, but all of a sudden, okay, we need a new bus barn. Oh, let's throw in the administration building with it. We know that people want the bus barn, so they'll just vote for the whole thing. No, people did not. That's why your levies went down. I know some of the teachers here and people who work for the district don't realize what the older people who are still working, paying taxes, kids are grown. You know, West Valley school taxes make our real estate taxes quite expensive. Some people don't live out here because of the taxes. I think if you want to, I'm shocked that you had this much money. I was floored when people at work were saying they had $19 million. I was like, what? Who in the hell figured that out? I've never heard of them have that kind of money left over. So it's not a gift. I mean, I've heard someone say it's a gift. It's not a gift. Quite frankly, it's a miscalculation. But if you use that money for anything, and I agree with safety 100%. I have grandchildren. Everyone needs to be safe. But for God's sakes, if there was a well that is out of control at Mountain View should have been built way before Apple Valley. Apple Valley was built when I was in grade school. Mountain View's been there for probably 60 years. So give the money back to the people and let them have a choice in what they do with the money. If you give the people the money back, and I'm speaking as a non-school district person, so I know it's hard for teachers and administrators to look at it from that point of view. But if you go to the majority of voters who are older and you're going to just use that money because that's what you decided to do, because it's a gift, they're not going to trust you for another levy, and you're going to go down. And I will probably help in that direction. You need to give the money back in whatever way you do, or go to the people and say, we have some issues with safety, a well, the roofs are leaking, whatever. I mean, and what would you have done if you wouldn't have this extra money? Would that have just gone by the wayside? Don't we pass levies for maintenance? I mean, so we were just gonna let the football field be crap and the well be crappy and all these things go away? Just all of a sudden now you have this money, so we've got to fix everything. Take it to the people by a vote. Let the people vote. If they agree, and I'm sure even older people have grandchildren, they'll agree for safety features if you approach it that way. But right now, from the people who, like myself, who really have not been involved in this, it just looks like now all of a sudden, oh great, we got this money, let's just use it. Let the people decide by a vote if they want to. And if the younger people and the people who work for the school district, they have just as much vote as everyone else who is in healthcare or whatever, as attorneys, lawyers, doctors, whatever they are, let them all have a say in what they want to use the money for. And I think that's the only way you're going to pass future levies, is by being honest with the people. And I'm very thankful that you were honest enough to tell the people that you had this much money, because quite frankly, if you were very dishonest, you could have just put it under the rug and used the money and did whatever you wanted with it. So I can't believe I agree with an attorney tonight, but I do agree with you on a large scale. I do still
We're not all
think-
that bad.
Anyway, I do think that you should take it to a vote of the people, and I know you're gonna come upon all these decisions of, let's use it for this, let's use it for that. And I'm sure you'll take all this into account the next meeting or whatever, and decide what the money is best used for, but take it to a vote of all the taxpayers in West Valley, not just the school teachers and all the young people, kids in school. I want the best for West Valley School District right now. I mean, I just met Saturday morning at the Hill to have our class of 1978, 45 class reunion. So we are very pro West Valley. I just want it to be done open and honest to the taxpayers.
Thank you. All right, so we're now at a point where there were no more speakers, so we can do a second round if anyone else wants to speak. So I see we have a second-term speaker here.
I have two items, one that I forgot to bring up, and that's the growth of the district. Take a Tandem Elementary, we put in 3 portables down there, do basic math at 20 kids per classroom. That's 120 kids that we're adding to that building down there, and that parking lot is made for half of that. So when you talk about safety, the parking lots that need to be improved, Mountain View, I mean, if they have an activity, they're parking on the soccer field. So if we don't keep the money and spend it prudently and do some of these projects, how are you going to pay for them and how are they going to get done? If you have a boiler go out right now, do you have $100,000, $200,000 a chiller to go out? The last chiller that I replaced in the district was Cottonwood. 12, 15 years ago, it was $100,000. So who knows what that is right now. And the other one is just, it goes against your rules a little bit, but just to clarify, the Mountain View well, the water is not bad. It is tested monthly with the state. It's on the state list. The district does testing. It is collapsing. It is deteriorating. It's just a bad old well. So the water is not poison.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak for a second time? Or let me ask first, is there any first-time speakers who haven't come up? Would you come up first, sir?
My name's Alex Moon. I pay taxes here in West Valley.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think there tends to be a little bit of confusion. So with the idea of retaining the money in the effort to be able to spend it on what is needed, the question that's being posed in my little group is, are we subverting voting with doing so? So maybe that's something that could be spoken to.
I don't think I understand your question.
So yeah, we have this idea that we hold on to the money. It's $19 million or whatever it may be. And in doing so, we can now say, all right, now we have X, Y, and Z. Let's go hit that. We can do it without having to put it through a new bond or a community vote on the bond. Or will there be a process in which the community comes in, discusses beyond just a room full of this many people, and says, no, we are okay with a $7 million football field or a $250,000 well or whatever it may be. So if you guys could speak to that for us, I think we would like a little bit of clarification just because we are unaware of that process. That'd be helpful.
First,
Go ahead. I've kind of, I mean.
Maybe, I just misunderstand how it
that's
works.
okay. I mean,
Yeah,
I talked
yeah.
to this, but I'll let Mark, I'll chime in if Mark leaves anything out.
First of all, as we stated at the beginning of this is to get your input on these things. So we want that first and foremost. I don't think that any of us up here is going to take a step or vote on something without first considering all the ramifications of it, okay? That means going out to the community as this is one of the step of many that we would have to do, right? You heard Mr. Thorner earlier said that some of these items would require an actual vote, and I wouldn't imagine that we would go forward without really bringing it to the community first, especially on these big-ticket items. I'm not speaking 100% for everyone, but at least my thinking is along those lines that we would want to consider everybody's input and then put it in the hands of those who have to pay for some of this stuff or who have already paid for it in the form of some taxes. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's about as good as an answer I can give you right now. So
When you say put it to a vote, you're saying in the actual community itself?
No.
Okay, so that's what we don't understand.
No, so
Yeah.
let me try to explain.
Yeah.
These two community forums are informal public input sessions.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
These are not, that's all that they are. We're going to finish these two hearings, or these, not hearings, these two meetings. And then what I would surmise is going to happen is the board is going to have a discussion during a school board meeting.
Okay.
Which would be the formal deal that we have at the high school, and the board's going to have a discussion about what does the board, what does the board want to do next, okay? One option, well, what I surmise is going to happen is we're going to say we want to take a vote, okay? That vote, we need to let administration know so that they can publish in the newspaper. So like when we, for example, when we pass the school budget, for the annual budget every year for the school district, and we do that in the summertime, that's published, we have to do that by law, and here it is, it's on our website, all of that. We have to go through that same publication process in advance of a meeting that we're gonna have, which would be a public hearing for anybody to make comments on. The board wouldn't have this back and forth, but we would have this hearing to take any further comments. And then we will vote on what is before the school board at that time that one of us would make a motion on, and we would vote on it. That's the legal process by which we can utilize these funds, okay? That could be one vote. The other vote could be that we take a vote and we say, okay, well, we're going to, as I say, as the term of art is, defease the monies back, actually ask the voters for less money,
Right.
and go through that. But whatever it is that if we decide to spend the money on that is different than Apple Valley and Summit View,
Right.
we will have to articulate what we are going to spend that money on.
Right. So the
Does that-
ultimate
does that
decision,
help- does
it
that
does,
help?
yeah, it helps. And the ultimate decision
would
made
be
by
the school board.
The board, yes,
Yeah.
okay.
If we decided to keep and utilize the
Right.
monies.
Right.
If we decided to defease, for example, and then later on, we decided to run a capital levy, which would only require 50% vote, where we would raise money for a certain period of time.
Okay.
That would be for the vote. If we decided to run another bond, like we did to build these schools, that would require 60% vote. So
Is
that,
this
those are, I
Yeah.
mean, that's all of the process as best as I can explain it.
Would it accelerate the processes, as a previous speaker asked? I don't want to take up too much time either, but would it accelerate the processes by retaining the money for some of these things that just really need to be done right now? Why do we not have money set aside for a well or whatever it may be?
Well,
Yeah.
let me address that, because we really haven't, let me address that briefly.
Should I sit down?
No, no, you're fine. One thing that has occurred, one thing that occurs every year in our budget is we set aside money in our general fund budget for capital projects. We move money every year for capital projects, these kinds of things. As Mr. Critchlow did terrifically for 19 years. He says he fought for money, but what it really was is that he made the best use of every dollar that he was given for this school district for 19 years, and we are very thankful for the work that he led, making that money go as far as possible. But it's never enough. That's been my point. We need to do a better job of budgeting this in the general budget to take care of these needs. We're gonna take care of, I mean, we're gonna, if the boiler goes out or if we have an emergency need, we have a fund balance with which we can draw from. That's not what we wanna do, but if we're gonna use fund balance, we would use it, or at least in my opinion, we'd use it on extraordinary costs, one-time costs, not continuing reoccurring costs. So I'm not disputing that we're not gonna take care of safety issues. Absolutely we will. The question, as I've tried to maintain is, okay, should we use this money or should we come up with, and I'm not just saying let's ask the voters for more money per se. I just think that we need to do a better job of budgeting so that we don't have to ask the voters for all. Some of this stuff we're not going to be able to do just on our own. We're just not going to be, and run the quality academic educational program that we want to do. We're going to have to ask for your support.
Right.
And
So,
just
yeah.
to add another point on top of that, if, for example, some of those funds were from this remaining building funds were used, then whenever we came up for, let's say, a capital levy, we may not necessarily have to ask for as much. I think that is part of the dialogue here in trying to figure out what to do with this. Or, as Mr. Thorner says, do we give it all back and then trust that we will be able to pass another capital levy and sufficiently fund some of these major projects? There is another option. We do have that fund balance money, but that really, in my mind, I look at it a little bit different. That is set aside for, every family leaves money for a pure emergency, for a rainy day. I feel more comfortable not touching that as.
If we don't have to.
If we don't have to. Plus, if we have to go out for another bond, having that money sitting there increases our credit rating, so which is a good thing for us if
Okay.
we need to ask for more money somewhere. So we want those kinds of things, but it all depends on what, our voters, our communities really want. That's why we're here today, and that's why we're going to be here in 2 more weeks to try and see if we can iron this out in a more clear fashion. So far, what I've heard was roughly a split up and down the middle. So it's going to be very difficult, kind of as I expected it would turn out to be. But good dialogue, good questions. So I don't want to keep going on this, but I do want to thank you. A couple of other people.
I'd like to say one more thing related to this. So to be really honest, and I've sat in budget meetings for 20-some years. And we did not treat Mr. Crislow very well in those 20-some years. If there was a need for a new curriculum for something or to fix a well at Mountain View, the new curriculum was chosen. We did not look at maintenance as a priority, and we got in a hole. And once you're in that hole, it's hard to get out. And that was our fault. That was administrators of the school district's fault. And part of that probably was that we didn't ask for enough money in our special levies. We were always pretty tight on those too. But we dug the hole, and that's where we are right now, is we're in a hole. Part of this is things that have come up in the last year and a half. Gender equality, the bathroom situation in all of our schools, but right now at the high school. $2 million to $7 million to fix those bathrooms and the shower rooms. That is a brand new issue. That is not something that anybody talked about a year ago. That's a brand new $7 million right there. Safety with the cell phones. We've lived without cell phone coverage in our schools forever. But this year, we decided to make it so that all the schools have, all the teachers' cell phones work in their schools. We finally decided to do that. And so that's another $1.2 million. That's something that we have basically ignored, I guess, in the past. We just figured out that you will walk over by a window and use your cell phone. Now we're trying to make it safe in all buildings, which I totally agree with. That there's things that have come up, and plus, at times, we've blown it in the past, to be very honest, and not done what we should have done. And now we have a chance to kind of, in my opinion, we have a chance to make it up and start again.
I did actually have an opinion.
Okay.
It's 15 seconds.
Just
yeah.
15 seconds, and I'm going to
15-second opinion.
recognize there's 2 more people, or is it 3 that want to speak? Okay, I want to ask for the first-time speakers to come first, though, after you, okay?
So my opinion is, as long as the community as a whole is fully made aware on what decisions are to be made and agree in a vast majority, I would agree with whatever that vast majority is. So I don't know where that falls. It probably follows somewhere in the middle. I'm a huge track and field proponent. So I would vote for track any day long, but after hearing both arguments, I fall right in the middle. So
All right.
And by principle, I probably fall a little more.
I'm just going to make it
towards
even, so there's
yeah.
2 and 2 there. Thank you. Next. And after you, there's 2 more people in line, and it's 9 o'clock, but I would like to finish. We'll stop with those 2, okay? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Wells, and I don't pretend to know all of the issues of the district, and my family is fairly new here. We've only lived here 2.5 years, so I wasn't involved in any prior stuff, so if you want to take my opinion and boot it to the door, I won't be offended. But I will say I do appreciate the transparency of this board and of the district, I think, with these funds. It's not like you're trying to say, well, we're just going to choose to do this. We don't care what you say. The input of the community is very well sought after, I think, in this issue, and I don't envy your position at all. And I'm not here to debate one position or another. I think there's been plenty of people with really strong opinions on both sides, and my husband would say I probably do enough debating at home that I don't need to do that here. But I do have 4 kids in the school district. I have 2 kids at Tanum and 2 at the middle school. So I see the needs every day that there are in the school district. My little boy, I'm not really this emotional, and this is not an emotional thing. But his classroom is not connected to the building out of Tanum, so he has to go around outside to go to class, which is fine for him, but I have another child in the school district who does have some special health needs, and that would be a problem for her. So seeing needs like that and thinking of that, it seems like a no-brainer for someone in my position. And I have been in a position with a school district where there was not trust, and bonds and levies were voted down, and then finally, after so much time where they thought, okay, we're in dire straits, we need to pass this, then it was passed, but then, like has been brought up before, you're asking for so much money. And I'm a pretty simple person, so I look at it like, okay, you're gonna give me back maybe $300, and then ask me in a couple years for $600. That doesn't make sense for me, because I'm not gonna be able to, I'm not a finance person either, like my brother, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to grow that $300 in 2 years into the $600 that is gonna be asked of me over that time, right? And by the time you ask for the money and collect it, costs are going to go up significantly. So I think there's been a lot of great suggestions. I think getting input from or getting help from the community for some of these projects, like was brought up, maybe even for the high school field and things like that. I think there are economical ways to get these things done with many hands from the community who would be willing to pitch in. I come from a really big church community who I think would be very willing to step in and help if there were service projects formed to help take care of some of these needs. To sum all that up, I would say that I'm a proponent of option number 4, and thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is John Easterbrooks. I've lived in the school district since '84. Had 2 daughters that graduated from West Valley High School in the '90s. I've always supported your O&M levies and your bond measures. I make the distinction between the two, like Mr. Thorner said. The O&M levies only require 50% plus 1. Bond measures require 60% supermajority. It's hard to get a bond passed. Basically, I'm a little, I appreciate the capital project list here, and I'm a little surprised that more of the medium and high priority items have not been addressed yet. And I'm wondering, you know, like I just said, the O&M levies require 50%. There's a maintenance piece to the O&M. Why aren't some of these things getting done on O&M levies that are much easier to get passed? It only takes 50%. Like the well at Mountain View and some of these other high and medium things should have been done or could be done on your O&M levy instead of trying to get it done with bond money. I would like to see you address these safety and medium and high priority items. But I also like what the lady that spoke earlier about a compromise, trying to doing kind of the middle ground. I guess I'm sort of in favor of option 2 or 3, address those high and medium priorities and return a portion of the bond money so we don't poison the well for future bond measures when you need to get 60%. At some point, you're going to come back with a major capital bond request, and you're going to need 60%. You're going to need a supermajority, and I don't want you to, prevent that from happening by, ticking off a lot of the patrons in the district. And the other thing Mr. Meyer mentioned was that it's really not 19 million. You've got a punch list of items at Summitview and Apple Valley. It's more like 16 million or something like that.
At this point, it's right around there, yes.
Right. So, and don't you have to, does that include monies to fix the playing fields at Apple Valley? You've got some sort of a settlement with the landowners
That's
to
that's already been taken care of.
That's been done? Okay, all right. So, anyway, I think it should be some sort of a middle ground, get some things done, but return some money to the taxpayers, and so that when you go for the next big bond measure to build a new school somewhere or something really major that we can get it passed and maybe not have it fail 3 or 4 times like we did with the high school. And try to do more of these things with O&M, the M portion of the O&M. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, well, we've got one more. Last one, Mr. Moore.
I'll be brief. I'm not going to reiterate my stance. The board knows exactly how I feel. But I will say that 2 and 3 should be taken off the table completely. If you spend a nickel of that money, spend it all. Because you are not going to prove anything for a very long period of time. There's heads shaking out here about when we're going to pass the next, and I understand that. It's hard work to pass a bond, extremely hard. It's been hard to pass a levy. But if we spend a nickel of that money, spend it all. Because it's going to be a long time before we get any more.
Just for the record.
All right, absolutely the last
one.
Okay.
Is it possible, if you believe in how you want to spend this money, then why not put out at minimum an advisory vote to the committee, and then work from there, or even a full vote to spend that money? Because I think at that point you would know what the community wants.
So what
and
happens when, here's where I struggle with that idea, not because it's not a bad idea. But we had Mr. Morgan tell me it's like 8,300 people that voted in the bond, 8,400 people. Okay. And then roughly about 5,800 approved, okay? What happens when we take that advisory vote, when we do that advisory vote and we get a lesser number of people, or we don't get 60%, is it 50, is it 60%? What does that, what are the qualifications of that advisory vote in order to give us a mandate that that's what the community wants us to do? Does that make sense?
Yes, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a mandate. I think it would
so then if
provide to people the opportunity to input, as many people who want to input, they can do that.
So then when we do something that's different than what the community voted for, then we're really going to be in trouble.
I think you work from a standpoint of openness and honesty and then go from there. So that's all I wanted to add. Okay.
All right. Okay, we're going to wrap up here. I just have one closing statement, and anybody else can jump in here at the table if you'd like. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate your candid comments, good comments, and giving us a lot to think about. Clearly, there's not a real clear mandate either way, but it's good to know where everyone is on this issue. We're going to have more discussion on this. I would encourage you to please attend the next forum in 2 weeks, the same time. However, it will be at the Harmon Center. Encourage other families and friends to attend as well. We need to hear from more people. And lastly, when you leave here tonight, think about all the things that were said. There was a lot of stuff discussed here, a lot of perspective. I know some things have opened my eyes a little bit. I hope that I opened other eyes as well. But this is for all of us. This is for our kids. This is for a long time. This is not going to be something that's going to last just a year or two that, is going to be forgotten about. This decision that we make over this stuff is going to be with us for a while. So we want to make sure we concentrate on making the best possible one, and that's going to require all of your input and involvement. So thank you again for being here. Anyone else want to make a closing comment?
I would just like to say that I think we are all very well aware that no matter what decision is made, it's going to make half the people happy and half the people not happy. And that's just part of being on the school board, and we'll make that decision with that understanding. And it's going to be difficult.
I'd like to say two things in closing. First of all, for those of you that are here and that maybe represent people that couldn't be here, and they want to address the board and they can't make the next community forum, school board at wvsd208.org is how you can just tell them to email us. It'll come to all of us. I know each one of us reads those emails. Some of them have already come to us. Please do that. The second thing that I wanted to say is, as Mark said, is thank you. I just really appreciate the respectful dialogue that we had tonight. This is a model that is not demonstrated throughout the country, that we can get together and have a constructive dialogue without personal attacks. And I just want to congratulate everybody for speaking from their heart, speaking respectfully, and it makes me happy to see how we all conducted ourselves this evening, and so I'd just like to say thank you.
Okay, we'll look to see all of you in 2 weeks. Thank you again for coming tonight.